Welcome to Conversations with Healers, a podcast and video interview series that features intimate, soulful, and cozy conversations with self-healers and healers. Healer to healer, we dive into all aspects of self-healing and healing, and being and becoming a healer. I am Damla Aktekin. I am a healer and the host of this podcast, and I can't wait for you to listen to this conversation. If you are new to this podcast, please take a moment to subscribe so that you can be aware of new episodes. I also invite you to visit adropofom.com, adropofom.com, where I share a lot of free resources for self-healing and healing, and you can take a free quiz to find out what your energetic wounds are and how they may show up in your life. Discovering what your wounds are is the first step in healing them. I hope you enjoy this episode. There is one more thing I would like to share with you before you listen to this episode. I created a wonderful container to help you heal your energetic wounds and activate the infinite light and potential of your inner children. It is a crystal energy healing membership called Chakra Bliss Vault. Every month, you will receive 3 new crystal healing sessions. Plus, you'll immediately have access to my entire energy healing recording library when you sign up. The membership is really affordable and will continue to be so. You can find out more about it at adropofom.com, adropofom.com. I invite you to make healing your energetic wounds and connecting with your inner children a priority and invest in your well-being by becoming a Chakra Bliss Vault member. Hi everyone, this is Damla Aktekin and I have with me here Cherie Burton. Hi Cherie.
Hi Damla, so good to be here.
So good to have you here. Let me do your, not so brief, but I love all the different avenues that your journey has taken. Let me do a brief introduction to you. You are a mother of 6, an author, international speaker, podcast host, international business owner, and emotional restoration expert. And you teach a new feminine leadership paradigm through your Stand, Speak, and Shine programs and retreats, which I'm excited to dive into. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, it makes me sound really exciting, but I'm not really that exciting.
Well, to me, you are, and I'm so happy that you're here. And I want to start by hearing about how you define what you do now and what personal journey has led you to doing what you do now.
Yeah. Well, what I'm mostly doing now and feel the most passionate about is this feminine awakening that we're seeing happening everywhere. And I believe that, there are certain souls on the planet right now who were positioned here, if you will, at this time, especially those of us coming into maturity or awakening ourselves into what are we really here for? We've been asking ourselves this for years. Why am I here? And I think most people are coming to understand, men and women are coming to understand that there's a healing of the feminine happening, the feminine energy, the feminine consciousness. And my background, I'm the second of 7 children. All of my siblings, except myself and one other sibling, were diagnosed bipolar. So there's a lot of significant mental illness history in my family, on both my mother's and father's side. I lost a sister to suicide who's 2 years younger than me, who left behind 5 children. And this happened in 2005. That was a really pivotal juncture in my awakening to some issues that in our culture that are really pervasive and not friendly to the feminine, we could say, like the suppression of your voice. I believe that there are some aspects to our culture that really exacerbate mental illness for women. We can get into that later, but my journey, I mean, because I do have a traditional degree in psychology, I have worked in clinical settings, including a psychiatric hospital and an addiction recovery center. And I just started to notice that people weren't really getting well. People were relapsing, or they were cycling through, and we all have a degree of mental illness, and our families are all screwed up, and our families are all carrying these patterns. But I really wanted to climb underneath what was creating it. I didn't want to just slap a Band-Aid on the symptoms or, spread awareness. I really wanted to find out what was creating these issues: depression, anxiety, bipolar, and addiction, which all of those things are very prevalent in my family. And because I am a mother, I didn't want to see these patterns get passed down. I wanted to start really getting in and addressing it. My dad also lost a sister to suicide. She was 32, and in her suicide letter, she asked my parents to raise her 3-year-old son. So he was raised as my youngest sibling. But as it relates to the feminine awakening that I'm so drawn to, I didn't see a correlation. I thought I was just going into psychology, and I was raised in a very high demand religion, Mormonism. And I'm really grateful for a lot of the ways of thinking and the really strict health codes and a lot of the really beautiful teachings and doctrines that were presented. But I also, as I've gotten older, I've unpacked some of the most damaging, toxic pieces of what I was programmed with as well. So I'm holding both of those and noticing that we still have a lot of healing to do, and that we all come into these constructs and these family constellations and these systems that really can have the potential to diminish us. And that can create mental illness, and does create or exacerbate mental illness in very sensitive souls. So that's in a nutshell why I'm in this space now, empowering women in my Stand, Speak, Shine programs, and starting my podcast, of which you were a guest recently. I've been podcasting now almost 4 years. I love it. I've done an episode a week for almost 4 years, and I've interviewed hundreds of women and men who are all kind of saying the same thing, like it's time for us to look at these patterns and start to heal them.
Yeah, I completely agree with that part. There's a lot. I feel like we're living in times that it's not anymore easily possible to suppress or cover or ignore, because things are getting louder to come out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing a lot in your story, in particular this, I would love to know your definition of the feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And what were you in your, initial stages of this journey? You mentioned 2005. I'm guessing it probably started way before that, but what were you learning then about the feminine, and what are you learning and knowing now?
Mm-hmm. Well, my construct, when I was growing up, so in my religion, they talk about a heavenly mother with a heavenly father. So God, there is a feminine goddess, but they don't talk about, they just say there is one. Then they just leave it at that. Like, God hasn't revealed anything about this. And it always bothered me that we didn't have anything more developed. And here we are in the 21st century, and we don't have anything on this. And I thought, well, that's a little convenient, because it keeps women out of power and it keeps them from having true authority or a developed theology on what the eternal feminine really is. When I say feminine, it's a capital F, and it could mean sacred feminine. It could mean divine mother. It could mean divine feminine. There's many ways. It's just an all-encompassing term for the essence of feminine energy, and ancient mother and heavenly mother, if you will. And there's so many ways, so many different cultures and religions and systems, they talk about a goddess, but it's not developed because I think she's a mystery, and I think it's meant to be that way. I would include Gaia, the Earth Mother, with that, and it's just a big mystery of what is this. But many of us experience it um, as an essence and a power. But as I grew up, of a mother figure, but that it's not this subservient, docile, nurturing. She can be nurturing, but she's also fierce. So you can hear the words fierce feminine or wild feminine alongside that. So I would encompass that into this wise woman, medicine woman, priestess. There's so many facets. Mother, there's just so many facets to this feminine. You could call it the yin energy as well in the Eastern tradition.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I'm hearing you say, or what's coming to me as I listen to you is you're mentioning this like almost lack of mention of the feminine aspect outside of ourselves in the society, in the religion, or in the communities that we find ourselves. It's almost as if with the lack of that, we come in with a lack of ability to define that within ourselves and to see that within ourselves, to see the, like you're mentioning, the maiden, the mother, the crown, and all the different seasons and aspects, and the shadow of the feminine and the light of the feminine, all of those weaves together in different shades and colors.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a huge sort of source of power and energy when you know how to tap into that. Which brings me to, I know that you work with women or the feminine empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of magic do women create when they get together? Let's
Mm.
that a little bit.
Yeah, I love it. I love the word magic there too. It's huge. Women learn through community. We're very relational. We're very tribal. We're very, the sisterhood, it's a real thing. And it's not that we're trying to marginalize men or be exclusionary. It's just that when we combine and we lead with inclusivity, collaboration, this is what the patriarchy has not done. They have said, okay, well, we're the strongest, we know what's best, and we're your authority, and this is the way it is. So it's like just like it's hierarchical, and it's leadership, it's master and servant based to a degree. It's like dictating to people, and it's very insular, and it doesn't always allow for other voices to come in. Like you could look at the proverbial conference table in a corporate setting, and a woman tries to raise her hand and share something. She feels like she has to act and be like all the other men in the room to be heard. And we're coming out of that. So you're right. We've externalized we've externalized and tried to make it about what's out here, but really what's rising right now is this awakening inside of people of that feminine essence in both men and women. But because we haven't had role models and we haven't seen this healthy inclusivity and this collaboration of everyone being invited to the table, irrespective of their race or their gender or their sexual orientation or their culture or their nationality, that everyone gets invited to the table. That's what the feminine does. And that's what we need to do inside of ourselves.
Yeah.
We need to embrace the shadows and the light and all aspects of our nature. And as this feminine energy rises, that's what she's trying to do. And so you see all these marginalized groups now, LGBTQ, all the racial disparity that we've seen, all the gender inequity. It's going to start to get healed, but it's going to be messy because we just haven't had good role models that are allowing us to really dip into what this feminine is. And so the pendulum is swinging right now.
Yeah. What I'm seeing there is, I love the picture you painted with the conference room table. For me, let's take the table out of there and then put like pillows on the floor and women seated by each other. And then it's almost like we were talking about finding that missing external validation and doing that for each other. Like you look at the mother who's having a hard time in that circle and you say, I see you. You look at the teenager who is having a hard time and you say, I see you. So in all these different stages of like, or someone who's going into the fall and the winter of their lives, it's almost like we have the ability as women, when we come together, women or those who want to get in touch with their feminine side, let's just include all, and have that opportunity to say, which you put very beautifully, like, you're accepted here, you have a place here in this circle, and the circle symbolizing everyone's on the same
Yeah.
level. And there's
Yes.
no head of the table, there's no bottom of the table, there's no
No,
one's.
it's a circle. I
Yeah.
love that you made that a circle because that is the feminine. That's how the earth is formed. It's a circle, the moon, the sun. Um, Creation is cyclical. When a mother gives birth, she gets round. Everything is in cycles and circles. And so, yeah, it's meeting everyone eye to eye on the same level. And hierarchy doesn't like that.
Why would it? If you could stand on top of people. I mean, that's not my thing, but yeah, if you look at it from that point of view, it doesn't
That,
it
yeah.
doesn't quite come together. I wish it did, or I wish it does at some point, because there's
Well,
to be said about leadership. What do
Well,
you
yeah,
think
we
about?
still, a leader is still the right kind of leader is a servant leader. So, you know, they're still giving voice to everyone in their circle, but they can still command a certain kind of knowledge or wisdom to disseminate for their, I don't want to say their followers, that's not quite the word, but those in their circle and sphere. They can still have influence with them and allow them to speak and then share their embodied wisdom and their experience without it seeming us and them, without it seeming like the leader's up here and we're all down here.
Yeah, it's almost like to the point of the leader filling himself or herself up with the love, with whatever the consciousness they're
Mm-hmm.
there to evolve into, and then pouring that out so others can do the same.
Yeah. And the best leaders, and I teach sacred feminine leadership in Stand, Speak, Shine, but the best leaders are guides. The best leaders are those who hold space for the evolution of that soul that they have influence with. They're not dictating a set of doctrines or beliefs as everyone's truth. They're saying, here is my experience. This may be helpful. Let me act as midwife for you to birth your own consciousness, to speak your own truth. Let me help you unearth that. Let me hold space for you and create containers of safety so that you can express your authenticity. Those are the best leaders.
I love that. I love the safety part that you mentioned, because unless you're safe, it's very hard that for that feminine part to come out and play, let
Mm-hmm.
alone shine. Which brings me to, we talked about the stand, speak, shine. So stand, and then you sit in a circle and you speak your truth. Tell me about the shine part. How do women shine? What's between us and really shining our truth?
Yeah. Well, we do have to start with stand because with stand, it doesn't mean you could be sitting, but it just means to be grounded. It just means to be rooted here, like first and second chakra, just like I'm here, I have a right to be here, I claim my space. So it's just you have to be grounded before you can shine. You have to literally take a stand and say, I respect myself enough to ground myself to this earth. I'm here, I'm fully present. And then the speak could mean speaking your truth, but often it just means expression. Like once you're grounded and you're standing, so to speak, then you can let it out. You can have that embodied wisdom flow through you, whether it's creativity or art or actual words. So the shine from stand, speak, shine is really about just letting yourself out, like the genie coming out of the bottle. Like many of us have felt like we were in cages and we couldn't, or we're in a chrysalis like a butterfly. We've been, in the caterpillar soup, just sort of metamorphosizing. Well, at some point, that butterfly, she's going to flap her wings and she's going to come out. So the shine is just allowing your own individuality of expression to gift this planet. And it doesn't mean you have to grab a microphone or, move the masses. It just means here I am, because the highest and holiest relationship you have is with your own divine soul, period. Because that divine soul is in direct connection to source. And so once you access your soul voice, and once you ground here, then you are able to flap your wings, so to speak. You are able to be the highest expression of yourself, whatever that means for you and whatever you desire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. And why is it important for the feminine in us to do that, to stand, speak, and shine? I mean, we talked a little bit about it. I feel like it's needed and missing in the world, but why else do you think it's so important?
Because you'll get sick and you'll get depressed. I mean, when you suppress something and you keep pushing it down, whether it's your true feelings, your identity, your voice, your sexual orientation, your knowings that something you're hearing feels off, but you just keep pushing it down and pushing it down. Well, suppression leads to oppression, which leads to depression. So if you cannot healthily express, you will suppress, oppress, and depress. So the commonality is press, right? So when I'm talking about that butterfly, she's out, she's expressing, she is showing her true self to this world. And that's how we're going to heal. That's why that's so important, whether it's a male or a female or non-binary, whoever, be yourself. And that freedom is, people are searching for that freedom. They want to see prototypes and models of people doing that in healthy ways. So it's your presence, like that famous quote by Marianne Williamson. Your presence will automatically liberate others. Just your presence when you're in that space.
I like that. And touching upon what that's reminding me of is from my personal story, it has been an excavation of realizing the places that I had internalized that suppression and oppression, thinking that that was the norm. And it took a level of sort of, like you said, grounding myself and then filling myself up to a point where I could really stand and say, okay, no more. I'm going to do my own thing in my own way. And when you find yourself in that suppressed and oppressed places, whether through others or through your internal process, I feel like, first of all, a lot of gentleness towards yourself and a lot of reaching out to resources within and around you. How do you feel about that? The resourcing?
Oh, yeah. There's no other way to do it. I mean, we're wired for connection. So we need tribes, like you mentioned before, women. What is the power of a circle of women, right? Well, that's what you're doing. You're holding space for each other to be the butterfly. And I just know that when I was in my dark night of the soul period, I felt so disillusioned and so disoriented because I was questioning everything and everything I knew, which is a very healthy stage of spiritual development that we don't often hear about, is this darkness, this dark night period and season. And so I can't imagine, had I not found mentors that allowed me to not know that I was going crazy and just gave me these validating and affirming mentions of, you're right on track. You're not going crazy. This is spiritual awakening. A spiritual awakening can model psychosis in a lot of respects. There's a lot of research on that. In indigenous cultures, when they started to see this happening, they celebrated this unraveling. We don't do that here. We tell everybody to put on a happy face and look pretty and smile and be compliant and don't rock the boat. And that's called spiritual bypassing. And it does not allow you to develop spiritually. There's a necessary like reckoning or period of a rite of passage in a spiritual awakening where you have to go into a descent journey. And religions tell us that that's just, it's literally the worst thing you can do in a religious context, because you've lost the light, you've lost the spirit, you're going to be deceived by Satan or whatever. When in actuality, most people don't let them go to that place because it's not comfortable. They want someone to tell them what to believe. They want something to tell them what to do. They defer to the hierarchy. They defer to the leaders because they don't trust themselves that they can go down and in. And that is the feminine. The masculine goes upward and outward and projects as projected energy of actually doing and being. And we all have masculine and feminine in us, but the feminine is down and in. That's literally our anatomy anyway. It's male anatomy and female anatomy, but it's an energy of going within and trusting that the Holy of Holies inside of yourself holds answers for you, and trusting that inner authority. It's not a process for the faint of heart, but a lot of people are going into it and they're like, oh my gosh, what's happening? What's happening to me? It's like, no, you're just awakening.
Yeah.
You're right on target.
I love that you use the word descent, because that's exactly what it felt like for me. For me, the dark night of the soul was when I became a new mom, and I felt myself just going deeper and deeper into this deep well of darkness. And it didn't occur to me to get that diagnosed. It was just, I was in the feeling of it. And I just knew that I would be asked to step out of it, but now I was there and I was feeling it. I was just seeing, it's almost like when you're in the darkness, the light is a little bit more subtle, so your eyes get used to it and you can see what you need to see deep underneath there in the belly of the beast, which is your body. Thank you for that. I want to talk about two more things with you. The first one is the you're a podcaster, I'm a podcaster, and that to me has a lot about the standing and the speaking and the shiny part in it. So in your journey with that, what do you feel is happening there in your podcast? Like, what are you putting together? What is the invisible thread? What's happening underneath what people think is happening?
Well, I started my podcast in 2019, a month after I turned 50. And I was going through it hardcore. Like I was in the middle of the dark night. And I'm not talking, when I'm talking about the dark night of the soul, I'm not talking about depression. Depression could accompany it. But it's a season where you're upgrading to a new frequency. And so things need to crumble. So for some people it's different for everybody. For me, it was an unraveling of what I had been indoctrinated with 7 generations back through my religion. And the religion was just the catalyst. It wasn't the problem. It was just some of these things aren't sitting right with me and they don't land in my body, in my embodied feminine wisdom. It's not congruent. And I didn't know what to do with that. So I went into a space of not knowing and show me and a surrender. Sometimes a health condition like you're speaking of can trigger it, but often it's just something that comes when it's ready to come because you're in a space to receive. And I was on a divine feminine journey. I was doing sacred pilgrimages all over the world. I studied a lot about Mary Magdalene, a lot of archetypes and historical figures that represent feminine awakening. And I didn't realize I was being drawn to it, but I can look back now and see how I was literally following this thread until finally it was like the universe was like, oh, she's ready now. And then the scales fell away from my eyes. So that's when I started the podcast, because I felt like if I don't get this out, I'm going to combust. Like I need to talk. I'm just built that way. I like to talk a lot. I like to talk through things a lot. And it was so therapeutic to just be able to talk to so many personalities and different backgrounds. And they, like I said, they were all saying kind of the same thing, which is this whole authentic listening to yourself, standing in who you are. They were all saying it in different ways, but it was so healing to be able to just express myself. Because, like I said, if you don't express, you suppress, you oppress, and get depressed. And I could see that if I didn't find a way to express, that things would not be good. So it was a really pivotal piece of my healing. And I didn't care who started listening. I didn't care if it was like my husband and my daughter or whatever. I knew that I had to do it. And I'm so grateful that I have. As I'm sure you're grateful you started your podcast. It's just, I get a lot of people messaging me or stopping me. I was just at a business convention and a few people stopped me and told me they loved it and what it did for them. And they're not, I don't necessarily care how many people listen. I just want the people who are being midwifed through their spiritual awakening to find if this could be a tool that can help them to find this, so that it's the podcast I wish I could have listened to when I was going through things. That was my goal of like, that's what I want to create.
I love it. Well, I love your podcast too.
Thank you.
What is speaking to me very loudly in what you just said is that feeling of this just doesn't feel right in my body. Like this is what I was taught, but it just doesn't land in my body. I love the way that you put that. And that starts the journey of questioning and opening up to what else is possible or what else is underneath and around it. And yeah, and I love how you also said that it's not necessarily always about depression. It can be simply about being in that questioning place, being in that change place, in the in between.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a scary place to be.
It sucks in so many ways. But it's the birth canal, right? It's the birth, you're in the birth canal of the goddess. You were just in water and now you're going towards air or whatever element you're exploring next.
That's exactly right. You've been incubating for this moment.
Yeah.
And now the universe is going to push you out. And there's a part of your ego that thinks you're going to die. And guess what? A part of you is dying to be reborn.
Yeah. And there's some grief involved in that.
Oh my gosh, that's the worst part of it for me. It was the grief. The grief just about took me down.
Yeah. Speaking of the podcast, for me, it was very much I just wanted to connect with people who were interested in what I'm interested in, talking about consciousness, talking about the feminine, I get excited about different healing methodologies, different healing philosophies, and just diving into all of those things. And it has been that and a lot more. What I'm finding now is like I gather these connections just by pure happenstance. I see someone like you, I reach out to them, it just feels right. Again, that feeling in the body, or someone sends me something and I'm like, yes, this feels right. And then it turns out to be there's a certain theme that comes to being that for that year, which is more often than not is exactly what I needed to hear and be with as well. So it's a
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like even in my coaching program, I work with individual women, and it's oftentimes the issue that they're dealing with is an issue I've either recently or am in the middle of. And that's what I mean about not coming in and knowing everything, because people even if you're leading and guiding people, you're still grappling with the same universal themes that they are. It just so happens that you may have just had an experience that renders you a little bit more knowledgeable or wisdom based in that. That's it. We're all on the same playing field. So I agree with what you're saying. It's so crazy that they'll say, like, a guest will say something on my podcast, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you basically just described like exactly what I'm going through. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And it's a blessing and a privilege to be able to share that with others, and hopefully they go through their own little aha moments in there.
Mm.
I want to ask you about aromatherapy and essential oils. I know you have a special relationship with that. Walk us through that. How did they come into your life, and what are they for you?
Oh, yeah. So around 2007, 2008, my mother does foot zoning, and we had just lost my sister to suicide 2 years before that. And we were searching for answers of really, like, how do you get people back in their body? How do you support someone in a severe mental health challenge, for instance, or an anxiety attack? Or we were just looking for tools. My surviving sisters, and I have 3 brothers, 3 sisters, so we had lost my sister. So my surviving 2 sisters and myself and my mom, we were just looking for answers. And we all found essential oils, but I didn't initially, I thought they just smelled good. Like, I've heard the term aromatherapy before, but I thought, oh, okay, well, how could that be therapy? But the ancients knew this, and it's an ancient feminine wisdom tradition, actually, using these gifts of the earth to be able to help support people biochemically. So I just dove right in, and it soon turned into an international business. I'm aligned with a company called doTERRA, and I've been all over the world. In fact, I'll be in Korea, leaving for Korea in a week to teach about essential oils and emotions, and how aromatherapy and self-anointing, and how the fastest access point to your limbic brain is through smell, and how you can use multisensory components of taste, touch, smell, sight, sound to be able to heal your multisensory facets of yourself, because we are multisensory beings. So essential oils have been sacred practice. They've been, like I said, supportive of mental and emotional health. I've seen huge breakthroughs in myself, my family, my clients. I believe essential oils were a huge aspect to us helping to heal some of these epigenetic patterns in my family lines, because they are so potent, super chemistry, really, from the earth. You can't patent them. You can't, pharmaceutical companies can't come in and patent them because they grow in the earth. And so it's been powerful for me to come in and just claim this alchemy, and to just, I don't care if people think it's weird, like, it works, you know? And so I think I even mentioned to you that, I started to do readings for people, and just really short, like 15-minute readings, like muscle testing. Sometimes I'll use oracle cards. Sometimes and definitely bring in essential oils so that people get this customized, multi-sensory sort of template for their next level of healing or awakening. And it can be a very fast process, because I've been doing this long enough to know now. I used to hide my intuitive gifts. I used to be afraid of what people would think about muscle testing or energy or essential oils. And I'm like, no, we're past that. Like, I have been doing this now for, 13 years, and I know that it works.
Mhm.
So, and I'd even be willing to offer some free 15-minute readings for your listeners. I might have to see how many people respond and have to cap it off at some point, but it's just, I'm really passionate about it. I'm really, really passionate about it. And I get excited spending 15 minutes with someone and able to give them a piece to their healing that maybe has eluded them for decades. And it's not me, it's not my magic. It's that I just allow myself to be open so that whatever needs to come through can come through. And muscle testing has been a big part of that. And just my experience in working with thousands of people with essential oils, and being able to see how that multisensory tool can activate healing for them.
Yeah. Um, Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. So I will actually have some information about the free 15-minute essential oil reading with
Yeah.
Cherie.
And I will have my assistant facilitate that and send my calendar, and yeah, we can definitely make that happen.
Yeah, we'll include I'll include detailed instructions about that. I love how you said the self-anointing. It's almost like with the oils making or recognizing your own sacredness and partnering with something sacred, which to
Yeah.
me reminds a lot of the healing partnership I do with crystals. They're of the earth as well.
Yes, I got my crystals
Yes.
here. I love them.
Yeah. Um, I want to know, as sort of a parting question, what birthing canal you're in right now, what you're learning and moving through, and what you're finding out in the process.
Well, thank you for that question, because I'm still in the thick of a lot of trauma release. In fact, I had a memory of something that happened to me when I was 4 come through a couple weeks ago, when I was in fetal position on my bathroom floor with my husband helping me. And I wasn't in terror and I wasn't in fear, and I was grateful. My body was like, oh, she's ready now to let this come through. So I was holding space for myself. I was being a presence for my inner child so she could cry and grieve and all of the things. And I'm always in awe when that happens, because even though I'm on stages teaching about this, and I have a podcast and I've got clients and programs and retreats, I'm still releasing ancestral stuff. But here's where I'm at to answer your question. I know how to hold space for myself now so that I'm not falling apart. I trust aspects of how I will respond. I've put markers around and tools around, like essential oils and EFT and different modalities and tools that I do for myself, embodied movement and yoga and things like that, so that I trust that if I hit a difficult patch, or a new memory wants to come forward, or a new pattern wants to be reprogrammed or, transmuted, that I have tools, and I trust that I will be able to get through it. It's not going to overtake me as it has in times past. I'm out of the dark night season, thank goodness. That doesn't mean that I won't face trials and tribulations in the future, but I'm grateful that I went through that birth canal, and that now I've probably crowned now. Like, that's probably where I'm at. I don't know that I'm the full butterfly.
Oh, yeah.
I like to visualize that, though, because it's very powerful.
Yeah.
So,
I like that. Thank you
I think
for
I was like overdue. You know how like a mom can be pregnant? Like, she's 10, like my oldest son, he was 10 days overdue, and I was in labor for 3 days, and like I pushed for 3 hours. Like that's probably akin to what he's going through as a 26-year-old. That's his life pattern. And just as an interesting little side note, you can look at your actual birth and your mother's pregnancy and labor as a sort of prototype for how you do life to some degree. It's not always accurate, but my mom was pregnant with me. She was 19, 20 years old. She was in the hospital for 3 weeks with me before I was born. I was her lowest birth weight baby. Like, there was a lot of stuff I took on. My dad was in Vietnam. I was born in the Navy hospital. So I've had to look at, like, as it relates to my, it took me until I was 50 to actually get born, so I was a little overdue. At the same time, there is something about midlife, as I'm sure you're probably seeing. Like, there's what you went through when you had your first child, but then there's what you're going to go through in midlife. And they're very different stations of maturity and spiritual development. And I'm so grateful that I'm through the quote unquote thick of it, and that I'm ready to be in this world as me and can weather whatever storm is going to come.
Yeah. Whew, okay.
That was a lot. That was like
I
a
went to
really,
Art Canal with you.
yeah.
I can see the light. Thank you so much for sharing that, Cherie, and all the rest of it, because I think it's important for people to realize, like, being a healer doesn't mean you're going to be perfect, or that you're not going through your own stuff. We are. I am too. We all are. And in the midst of it, there are things that we gather in the journey that we can share and make meaning with and make meaning of, um,
Mhm.
offer as guidance to others and to ourselves. So thank you for doing the internal work that you do, which benefits all of us, and doing the external work that you do, which is wonderful, and I'm in awe of it. Um, I want to direct people to your website. There's standspeakshine.com, as
Mhm.
well as your website, cherieburton.com. You have a wonderful podcast, which I love. People should check that out.
Mhm.
You offer a 12-week course on the sacred feminine, which we talked a little bit about. But do you want to tell people what they would find if they go to these places?
Yeah. Yeah. So Stand Speak Shine is the 12-week Sacred Feminine course on becoming an embodied, conscious feminine being and leader, if it's your desire. And that's only $222. You can take it's very, very content rich, and you can take it at your own pace. But yeah, like I said, and I would love to offer the readings, the 15-minute essential oil oracle readings, and that can get really deep really fast. So but those are the two offers I would say to send to your listeners. I have free things too. I have, when you go to Stand Speak Shine or CherieBurton.com, I have a free healing kit that you can download, as well as my podcast is all free, like hundreds of hours of content. So um just grateful, just grateful that we connected and you got to be on my show and now I get to be on yours. And so I'm sure that our listeners are very similar energetically, and all searching for this, like having this beautiful permission to just be liberated and be yourself. That's why we're here. That is the purpose of our life, is to be who we are, to unravel all the layers of distortion and get to this like beautiful butterfly.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for being here. And those of you listening, thank you for listening. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to Conversations with Healers. If this episode spoke to you in any way, please leave a review or comment, like or love it, and share it with others in your life. This is a true soul love project from my heart to yours. I really appreciate your help in spreading the word. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and check out other episodes to listen to some extraordinary healing stories and advice. Have a beautiful and wonderful day.